Welcome to the Future is Freelance podcast, bringing together the best minds from the freelance ecosystem. We honor the expertise that comes from all levels, from freelancer to platform CEO, from community builder to enterprise leader. Together, we'll define the future of work. If you value this content, there are two ways you can support it. Follow this podcast wherever you get it and leave a positive review, or share the podcast with a friend. Find out more about our movement, including live events, coaching, and tons more content at fruitioninitiatives.com. Thanks for being part of the movement. Hi, Joel.
Hello.
How are you?
Pretty good. How are you? How's everything? Super happy to be here. Thank you for the
Me?
invitation.
Yeah, me too. I'm super happy that you're here. And yeah, like usually when we go into these things, I don't give a lot of upfront context, but I will for this one, because the way that we met each other was you just recently helped me go through a complete rebrand of my business. I found you through a referral from someone who has been on the podcast multiple times, Anna Burgess-Yang, who's a dear friend of mine. And so throughout that process, I think we just had obviously a ton of conversations. You have an incredibly thorough process for that, and realized that we were so like ideologically aligned on a lot of things, and so wanted to be able to just have that conversation like publicly with you. So I'm really excited to get into it today with you. So let's start off with the three questions we ask everyone at the beginning. Who are you? What is your work? And why do you do it?
I'm Joel, and right away I can start the conversation. I don't have a specific title. I don't call myself an entrepreneur, freelancer, or anything. I'm Joel, and I'm a brand strategist and designer, and started out as a graphic designer. I'm from Portugal as well, so the other side where you are. And yeah, that's basically it. I have a small team working with us, and what our big focus is people like us. When I say people like us, being great out of that conversation about the titles, but people that work online, that provide services online to other people, to other businesses, and so forth. That's who I am.
And why do you do it? Why do you do what you do?
I do it, one, because I need to make a living, right? I'm not going to post anyone. We all need money. I do it this way because I never saw myself working a so-called job, to the point that I've never had a job. I did 4 internships though, and that was enough to quickly realize, no, this is not the way to live. And I very quickly went into this business world to live on my own terms. And that's what you believe in. And I do it now just for people like us, because I want to help people like us. I'm much rather interested in solopreneurs, freelancers, service providers of this world, and helping them get more than what they get than work for a large corporation, or any of that. So I'm one of us working for us.
Love it. I know that you didn't always work just for us, right? So tell us a little bit. I know that you made, as we all do, we have these sort of crossroads and transition points in our business, which I think is what makes this one of the many things that makes this kind of work worth doing, that we are allowed to just reinvent ourselves whenever we want to. We have the power to do that. And I know that happened for you. You had a pretty big pivot in your business several years ago. Talk us through that a little bit and what led to that and how it worked. Because I think that a lot of folks that I talk to get to a place where they're like, they've built the business, they've done the thing, it's working. On paper, it's giving them everything that they need. And they wake up one day and they're like, even though I've built this thing, I've put all this work into it, it's not the thing anymore. But I think a lot of us don't feel, I don't know if empowered is the right word, but making that kind of pivot is really hard. So I'd love for you to talk to us about that a little bit.
The funny thing, when I was starting, I was saying, so we live like this and we follow this path professionally, blah, 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 because we're going against the norm and we're doing things differently and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of us, and what happened to me is, even with that mindset, I ended up living and working as you're supposed to. As in, I targeted the big companies. I went for the big clients. I went for all the what you're supposed to get because it gets you the better comfort, the more money. Then I got it and I got there and we got there and I ended up with a work week packed with people that I didn't like. So even though I was getting the income and we were making money, the projects that we were in, the people I was working with, the nonsense that corporate throws at you, that all can easily happen when you're working for yourself as well. So it was the big moments, and the reason why I'm a branding specialist now and highly focused on rebranding projects as well, because I have a big passion for people that go through these pivots. Because again, I went through one myself. It was late November, early December, and in 2020, so with all the pandemic and all the nonsense already going on, and I was like rolling my eyes at every task and clients that I had on my schedule, and I was like, Joel, you built this whole thing. You're preaching online that you live your own way and you built this beautiful thing and blah, blah. And at the same time, I was low key miserable. Like I found myself complaining about the same things that people that have normal jobs complain about. And there we go, Monday again. There we go, another shitty client I have to deal with now. And I was like, no, this cannot be the way to do it. So I did a risky thing of starting over, but even then, it's not fair to call it starting over because I have already had. So I've been around for 10 years, just for context. And this happened like at year 4 or 5. So I had 4 or 5 years of experience already. And I was like, no, this has to stop. I wrote a couple of emails, jumped on a very couple of calls as well. It's not easy to fire a client. You're firing yourself after you're quitting. And we have a couple of projects going on and 6 ongoing clients at the time. And no more. So at the end of the year, I fired everyone. Through mid-January, until mid-January, there was a transition process with a few of them. But yeah, completely started fresh in January 2021. And it really felt like a new business. Completely new target audience, completely new set of services. Those first couple of months, even March, mid-March, I'm not gonna lie to anyone here, it was tough. It was really tough to get on it again, but it worked out. Now I'm happy, which has skyrocketed to the priority of my list. Money is far better than it was before, which is interesting, right? And I'm working with clients that on paper are a lot smaller than these big companies that we were working for. But yeah, the fulfillment that I now get from my work of helping people like myself, I don't think we can put a price tag on that. As cliche as it may.
I think that story is, I can see myself in that story, as I'm sure plenty of the folks who are listening to this can as well, where I had a similar moment. I didn't make a similar kind of like hard 180 pivot like you did, but I had a similar moment at the beginning of last year where I was like, I've built this thing. It works. It makes lots of money. I'm good at what I do. The work is easy. Like the work had gotten easy to the point where I was like you, I was like not excited about doing it. I was like, it's so easy. And that's, I think, one of the things that you and I talked about a lot in all the conversations we had about my rebrand is on paper. I think a lot of people, there's this thing out there about when people think about scaling and they think about making more money while working less. And you and I had a lot of conversations about, if you love what you do, the goal isn't necessarily to work less, right? If you love what you do, and I think it is exceedingly rare, even in quote unquote solopreneur circles, and we can talk about the terminology in a second. It is exceedingly rare to legitimately love what you do. And I fundamentally think that's because we change as humans so much over time that like it's impossible. Like the business that made me feel challenged 3 years ago is not the business that makes me feel challenged today. And if all I'm doing is doing it for the money and not for the fulfillment, then what's the point, right? Like working for yourself is hard. We might as well be getting exactly what we need from it. And I think this narrative about, like you said, you had gotten to this place where you had the same sort of complaints as someone who was working a 9 to 5 job. And this
Mhm.
narrative about success is working less and making more. And I think that narrative is fundamentally broken because that's not necessarily what success needs to look like.
As cliche as it may sound, again, the money was good, everything was good, the schedule was good, even, eh, and I felt miserable. Not that I was making like millions or anything. Like, let's not bullshit ourselves here, but like everything was good on the outside, even online, as I was marketing myself and all of that. I wasn't happy, so we burned it all down, started over, and here we are. I also would say this just so that I don't push anyone to do the same as I did. I live in Portugal, right? So the economy here allowed me to do that, and I had savings. So those first few months were fine. Well, there's that. But yeah, also in terms of goals for everything, because you reminded me of a recent conversation. I talked to someone that is in the same industry as we are, me and my team. And the guy is running a business, also the head, the main provider of service. And he told me, Joel, the only goal for me to scale and grow is so that I can sell this business and move away from it and move on to the next thing. And I was like, that has never crossed my mind. What I'm building here, it's for me, myself, and I, and no one else. And I was like, that's awesome. Cool. Good for you. That seems a very cool goal to have if you're that person, what I would call like a for real serial entrepreneur. They're just interested in building stuff, not necessarily be in it. But yeah, it really reminded me that success, this dude, success means I'm going to be able to sell this business. And that has really, again, never crossed my mind ever. And to me, success is I sit down at this desk every day and with people that I love. I'm good. So yeah, that's really interesting. I found that really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think that is super interesting. I think I had a brief stint right before I incorporated my company where I was a COO of a small research startup. And we had conversations about like investors and like these kinds of things. And I was like, the thought of someone else having any type of control over my business was like so foreign. I was like, that felt so foreign to me where I was like, that makes no sense to me. I grew up, my parents own their own business, and it's I guess the term that startup people use is a quote unquote lifestyle business, where it's like you're not growing it to sell it off. You're growing it because it gives you what you need. And then eventually, and you shift it over time so it continues to give you what you need because if it stays static, it won't. And then someday you retire. But even retirement, I feel like if you love what you do, I envision like doing some version of what I do forever and ever. Because what else would it be for if I wasn't doing it, right? But I think that example is so important too, because it's like there's, and we had to unpack this a lot together, where it's like all these narratives around what success is supposed to look like. And those are the sound bites and like the website copy and like the things that people tell you're supposed to be saying, right? You're supposed to be saying things like, what do I do? I help you make more money in less time. What do I do? I help you scale. What do I do? I help you make 10K a month. Like within 6 months, we'll be helping you get 10 new clients, make 10K a month, whatever the narrative is, right? And it just simplifies it so much down to these sound bites where it's like what success looks like for each individual person is incredibly personal. What success looks like for you and what success looks like for me is going to be very different. And if we're just boiling it down to these sound bites, then we lose that nuance and like that individual, like the essence of the individual. And that's what I love so much about solopreneur businesses is because it's literally like it is that person is the business. And it is like what the business is what it gives them. And they have the power to just like reinvent it or shift it or change it whenever they want to. Within the like you said, there are conditions that you want to have there
Mhm.
if you want to make some pivots, but yeah.
That's we're and I'll talk against myself here. We're victims of the growing online marketing and content that we get bombarded on a daily basis. From that, an exercise that we all need to do is do try and not consume mindlessly. and scrolling these platforms and just let these messages get engraved in our mind, because that's what happened to me, and that's why I ended up with it. Is like, because I was supposed to follow those things because everyone was telling me you should get this, you should get that, then you'll be magically happy. And surprise, surprise, I wasn't. And so yes, that inner work and awareness and self-awareness has also become like this huge cliche. But if you don't know what exactly that you want, um, none of this will work. If you're just in it for the money, cool. Get the money. See if once you get there, if it makes you happy. For a lot of people, it doesn't, but maybe that's you. Mm. And that's why I insist so much in my process, and I ask why and why again and why, to really try and get the person to realize, is this really what you want? Because you're going to make all the work around it. You're going to build this whole thing around this one goal that you have. Is it money? If it's money, who am I to judge? And hardly ever, hopefully, is.
Yeah, I think that want piece, that is one of the many reasons that the process felt so aligned for me, is because that is the first thing I do with anyone that I coach. The first thing I do with people is go through this whole process of helping them unpack what they want and unpacking some of these myths around, because just like you said, and I'm not innocent in this either. This happens to me all the time, where it's we go down these roads, and then when we come to those crossroads, often we look back and we're like, oh, that's not what I wanted. That's what society wanted me to want, or what my mom wanted me to want, or what my spouse wanted me to want. And you can go so far down that road. Some people spend their entire lifetime going down a road like that, right? Where they like get the MD or become the lawyer, when really what they wanted to be was like the artist or the teacher or something else. But they did it because of all these narratives. And again, they come from society at large, social media, but often they come through other people in our lives too. And if you don't, it feels, I have to give people this caveat when we do it, where I'm like, this feels, I don't know what the right word is. It feels soft or smushy. It feels like people come to a business coach because you want to work on your business. And I'm like, no, before we work on your business, we have to do this first. And I know this feels like a nice to have, but this is actually like the foundation of everything else that we do. If you don't do this, we can't build your business, because then you'll go down that road, and in 5 years, you'll turn back and you'll be like, I spent 5 years building something that has nothing to do with what I want.
If anything, you're saving them money. Because imagine that, and that has with me before, even before the process. I get that we did that as well, the two of us. Even before we start, even before I send you the proposal, we get on an 1 hour call for me to assess what's going on with you. I've ended up those calls like, you're not ready for this. I don't even know if this is for you. I suggest you do this or not. And they do not become a client, even though they're telling me to my face that they want to become a client, just because I know they're going to be wasting money.
Yeah.
And that has happened multiple times. So if you start or plan to work with a mentee or a client, I don't know what you call them, to help them with their business, and you're looking at this person, and because of your experience and what they're telling you, all the red flags they're raising, should you even be running a business? That has happened with me before, because even with close friends that I have here, so that they see all of this and they see me online and my girlfriend business. And so we're the couple that are outsider of the social group. Oh, wait, I should start something like you guys. And I'm dead looking in their face. I'm like, you were in the last week. It just isn't for you, which is, again, fine, totally fine. But so many of people like this awareness, and I don't even know if they ever had the room or the space to think about what they really want in life, because of what you were saying. My parents told me that, my friends, this is what you want, this is what you need, this is what you should follow. And then you wake up at, I don't know, 40, 50, and you're like, what is this? That was fuck. And that's what I low-key my one why I don't want that for anyone. Because I tasted it for a little bit in 2020, even after being the black sheep in every group, as in I never had a job. I'm never gonna apply anyone. I'm doing this whole thing differently. I've been living my whole life. If everyone goes like this, I will go like this. And even going on this direction, I ended up experiencing something similar. Yeah. I don't know, it gets wooey really fast, but
It does.
you
It
just
does, and
need
that's
to
why,
be
like
like,
I said, it's when I do, and you and I do similar work in different ways, right? But it's like when I start off, I have to give people that caveat in the beginning because I'm like, I know that going into this is gonna feel woo and it's gonna feel like self-development work and like, why is this important? And you have to make that case for people because the other thing that you said that I think is so important to pull out is we end up money is almost never, I will say never. Money is never actually the motivation. Money is great, and I personally love money. I love helping people make lots of money. It's great. I have nothing against money. I think money is very important, but that's why that unpacking of that is so important because if it's just about money, you will not last. You won't last. Like it has to be about more than that because there are far easier ways in our world to make money than to work for yourself by yourself. And if money is the only motivation, then you will never make it. And so that's like a very important thing to tease out in the beginning because it just can't be the primary motivation. And I think you didn't say this explicitly, but just inferring from what you said before is I also think that once you, if you're doing something that you really love and you've found this like your unique position in the world, like doing the thing that only you can do, the money follows. Like in a way where it's if you're trying to pigeonhole yourself, if you're just chasing the money, it's like really an uphill battle. And once you find your sweet spot, the money it's not easy. It doesn't just like naturally appear out of thin air, but it follows in a way that feels much more quote unquote easy than if that's the only thing that you're chasing.
it's super cliche as well, right? To say something like
Yes.
that and super wooey. But I can give you a very practical example of how true that statement is. When you're in business, thing that makes more sense is to do as much as you can for as many people as you can and get paid for it. And it's when you start to saying no to people and stop doing the things that you don't like that you actually make more money. I've seen this to be true in every client across multiple industries where you're actively saying no to people that the end you emailed you to them, and you end up making more money in the long. How is that? Doesn't make any sense, right? And it's true because you, as you said, become good at this one thing. This is the niche not conversation. You become good at this one thing and you get paid more to do that thing instead of saying yes to everything. On instinct, I have a lot of people at my door. I'm going to serve as much as I can, do as much money as I can from that. Makes sense, but it's the exact opposite that is true. It's when you're saying that you start making more. And it's
Yeah, and I think that kind of lesson, there's a part of me that's, and I will only speak for like my own journey. I'm about 10 years in as well. That is the kind of lesson that I had to, I think off out of the gate. It was the money. I was amazed about a couple of things when I started working for myself. I was like, I'm making way more money than I did before because it's not like all the middleman bureaucratic nonsense had been cut out. And in less time. So, like, those things happen to be true right from the beginning, but it was the flexibility also where I was like, "Oh, this is who knew that this was possible?" But that kind of, like, lesson, and I agree with you, it sounds so cliche to say that. The kind of lesson, like, getting to the place where you get clear and clear about what is the thing that I'm supposed to be doing here, that, for me, could only happen with time. Even though in the beginning I had the primary money wasn't my primary motivation. I was surprised by the money in the beginning, but it was like I had to go through all of the steps, all of the crossroads, all of the pivots to get to the place now where I can realize that. And so that's the thing too where I'm like there's like this baseline motivation that you have to take this journey in the first place. But also there's like these threshold levels of it where every time you cross through one of those, you learn more and more where you're like, oh, this thing, this whatever we want to call it, solopreneurship, freelance, whatever entrepreneurship thing has the power to just like completely transform the way you operate in the world, transform your life, transform who you are. But that's a lesson that I would not like. I barely begin to figure out that lesson 10 years in. And I think it'll only continue to get clearer and more powerful over time.
It's because of that and a lot of different things as well that we don't take freshly new business owners as clients. Because when you're just starting out, a lot of what I'm going to be telling you and sharing with you won't make sense, or you'll just, okay, that's nice. You
Yep.
won't feel it because you have to go through this exploration process in the first couple of years to fully understand what I'm talking about. And also the reason why you need to mostly rebranding projects, right? Yeah, that initial experience and going in on your own, completely on your own, making all these mistakes. Because no matter how much big of a mistake I'm telling you that you will do, you'll dismiss most of it because you have to go through it yourself. And I'm saying this, and I remember my own mistakes early on from people that told me you shouldn't do this and that, and I did everything and more because you're just in your own bubble. There's also this psychological thing where you put experience in a line, and when you start, you're like overly confident. I'm going to conquer it all. And then reality hits and you go back down, and then you start getting experience from the experience, and everything goes up here, right? I think I'm getting closer to that second loop where I have the confidence. I've always I'm a confident person, but I went through a massive deep in the past 3 years, maybe, because that transformation happened, and that's what sparked my own rebrand and all of that. And now I'm getting up again. People have to go through those ups and downs to really understand how all of this will work while having everyone else helping that process, and they're willing to be open to that help. Um, I want to get back to where you're talking about the money. And people say that money is the goal, and I want to get more. I will ask why, right? Now start with that one. Why do you want more money? And it's like more free time. Why do you want more free time? Just for kids. Okay, so it's not about the money, the family time. So shouldn't that be the focus? Oh, but to get there, I need the money. Okay, fair. But what's the real focus? The family. Well, let's talk about that. Let's mention that. And oftentimes, it translates directly into the marketing and the word that we write. A lot different from saying, I'm going to help you make more money than saying, I'm going to help you get more free time, which you get. It's a lot more important. But to follow that, and again, if you follow what you want, money will come. When you say the money will come, it will literally come because you're aiming for what actually is mean. I just wanted to give a really real example, because you hear that everywhere. If you do this and that, the money will come. How will the money will come? Because it will translate into granular things in your own business. And that can literally be a difference in how you write a social media post. Instead of promising the money, if you're promising the time with the kids because it's what you want, it's what you're helping other people get. Money is literally just a vehicle. And you'll see that.
I think that example is so important also because having, again, following what you want, which can change, which changes over time. So you have to always revisit that. But that sort of example also gives you this litmus test. Cause I think for when you run your own business, and this is true, whether it's a business of one or a business of 100, to a certain extent, we have this, there's like a slippery slope with money because if which is why digging into that is so important because if your only goal is money and you haven't done that digging down into what does the money give you, it's really easy to just chase the money. And I find myself doing this in my own business from time to time where I will be like, I could take on that thing and it would increase my profit margins by X number of dollars this year. And what would that do, et cetera, et cetera. But if I have that different goal, that different grounding place, I usually use the word litmus test. Those kinds of things are like the litmus test where it's like, if your actual goal is to have more time with your kids and it isn't actually about the money, like the money might be one vehicle to get you there, then when someone asks you to take on a huge contract that is going to give you lots of money, but it's not going to give you more time with your kids, it's very clear how to make a decision about that. Whereas if your only goal is the money, that decision becomes much more fuzzy and hard to make. And it is, to a certain extent, that can be really challenging for, like you said, saying no to people. That can be really challenging for people, especially people who are in this quote unquote scaling phase of their business where finding new work isn't necessarily like a problem. It's actually saying no and being able to say yes to the right things and holding on to those things that those criteria that allow our businesses to work for us. Because I could make an extra whatever X number of dollars next year, but what is that going to do for my life, for my fulfillment, for my family, apart from the money? And so those kind of criteria I think are so important.
We should have started with a big disclaimer here that this will all depend on the million different variables, of course. Because my own big goal is to travel more. I don't have kids. I don't plan kids. I want to see everything. And for that, I need both money and time. So
Mhm.
what should I follow? More free time or more money when you literally need both? But yeah, definitely knowing what you want and how you want to get it should help you make every decision, both personally and professionally. That inner clarity that I so often preach isn't just about business. It's literally about yourself and what you want. And it is important. And a lot of people go through in their entire lives without considering doing the work, which is
I think that's exactly right. I think that's a great place to leave us. Obviously, there's lots more ways we could probably talk about this for hours and hours. But thank you again for having this conversation with us and tell us a little bit more about where we can find you.
mostly Instagram and LinkedIn. So they're brand with Joel on Instagram and Joel Sousa on LinkedIn. But if you find me on Instagram, you'll find links to everywhere else where I'm at.
Perfect.
Thank you again for the invite, Sarah, and thank you again for the ongoing collaboration that we have.
Yeah,
With
thanks.